Good morning. I would like to call the Bruce County Council meeting to order and welcome those that are visiting us live streaming this morning. First up is roll call.
Councillor Buckle, Councillor Eady, Councillor Eagleson, Councillor Ingalls, Councillor Jackson, Councillor McKeever, Councillor Smith, Warden Tulin.
Present. At this time, I would ask anybody from council to declare pecuniary interest, either now or if it rises down the agenda. Hearing a confirmation of council minutes.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Ingalls, seconded by Councillor Buckle, that the minutes of the May 4th, 2017 council session be adopted as circulated.
Are there any errors, omissions, or discussions from those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, opposed if any, that is carried. Communications have been circulated. Are there any further communications? Delegations this morning. First up, we have the Bruce County Federation of Agriculture, Les Nichols, here to talk about rural schools. Welcome, Les.
Thank you. First of all, we certainly thank you for the opportunity to present here today. We have a proposal that we feel may help solve a such serious and impending problem that affects and will affect all Bruce County communities. Recently, the issue of education for rural students has come to the forefront in this county as well as many counties in Ontario. The closure of the secondary portion of Chesley Community School and potentially up to 100 other local schools in Ontario has rightly raised concerns in the rural population. Bus rides to schools of an hour each way for kindergarten students are not and should not be acceptable for rural students, and most certainly would not be tolerated by our city districts. For older students in rural areas, extended bus travel time limits critical time for studying as well as opportunities for out-of-school hours activities, such as sports, extra tutoring, part-time jobs, etc. In addition, especially during winter months, there's an increased potential for accidents and inclement weather. This is not to say that the Board of Education funding should be spent on old and inefficient buildings. On the contrary, the Blue Water Board of Education must strive towards getting the most bang for its buck from the funding that is currently provided by the provincial formula. We believe that the trustees on the Blue Water Board of Education take their responsibilities very seriously and attempt to achieve the best educational opportunities for Bruce and Grey County students. However, the support for rural students within the funding formula has declined over the past decade. The use of an education funding formula is intended to be an impartial and equitable method of distributing operating revenue to Ontario's school boards. On its surface, this approach makes sense. In reality, when the funding formula is matched with the complex and changing nature of our rural geography and delivered in the context of 4 publicly funded education systems, there are unintended consequences. Many of these consequences have had negative impact on our rural students and their communities. For example, the Ministry of Education has indicated that they have opened new schools or provided capital for expansion of existing buildings on an order comparable to the rate of school closures. Unfortunately, in rural Ontario, much of that expansion and new building has happened in the same location as existing space. This has resulted in school closures, often in the same community or in surrounding communities. Most often, large centers have benefited from the additional investment at the cost of rural communities and their students. A second example of these unintended consequences relates to the current formula as in the distribution of geographic circumstances funding. This funding is intended to support the education students in rural and remote locations. A little over a decade, a portion of that grant, currently known as the Supported Schools amount, was triggered by schools in the most rural and remote parts of Bruce County. Now this funding flows almost completely to larger population centers in our school districts such as Owen Sound. Once again, this puts pressure on our rural schools and their students. Needless to say, the removal of a school from a community strikes a severe blow to its vitality, perhaps even its survival. Young families looking to settle in the area naturally gravitate to municipalities with education facilities. Often, a school is a social compass that determines the overall personality of a community. Excuse me. It is no secret that over the last decade there have been a large decline in school-aged children across the greatest extent of the province of Ontario. Now there are far fewer rural and farm families sending children to school. What may not be as apparent is the fact that although there are fewer stewards of the land and a huge portion of their tax dollars fund the education system. Fewer farmers now pay tax on larger farm acreages while consuming fewer educational services. It is reasonable to expect that these taxes continue to fund a viable educational infrastructure that is vital to our rural communities. The Bruce County Federation of Agriculture firmly believes that there are positive solutions to this dilemma. Bruce County Federation is pleased that the Paisley School has a 5-year reprieval, and although the secondary portion of Chesley Community School is closing, the agriculture program that has been so widely praised will continue to function there as an off-site campus. It will be up to the agriculture community to prove that this is a viable project and maintain its availability should the off-site campus be transferred to another location. BCFA complements municipalities such as Erin Ellerslie that have offered substantial sums of money to the school board to facilitate keeping their local school open. However, this is a stopgap measure, which may ultimately result in further downloading of the provincial government's responsibilities onto already financially struggling municipalities. Although good in the short term, this is not a satisfactory solution. The decision of the Davis government made decades ago to acknowledge the sectarian nature of Ontario's population by extending full funding to all 4 education systems was based on transparency and fairness as well as the realities of the day. However, times have changed. With declining enrollment and the large geographic extent of rural Ontario, a new rural education strategy is critically needed. A new strategy with a focus on fairness to rural students and the communities must be envisioned. The Bruce County Federation wants to take a proactive and positive role in helping the Government of Ontario understand the urgency of this issue. It is our plan to circulate this proposal to all county federations in Ontario for their support and presentation to their own municipalities. Bruce County Federation of Agriculture asks that the County of Bruce endorse, number 1, our call for a new educational strategy in Ontario with a singular focus on fairness to its rural students rather than its 4 publicly funded systems. Number 2, that immediate moratorium be placed on school closures until such time as the funding formula can be updated to reflect and support contemporary rural Ontario. Excuse me. In summary, it is obvious that a rural educational policy must be promoted. Rural and Northern Ontario need to be treated differently than urban areas. It could be that the size of schools may differ, or programs offered may need to be localized according to the need. A sliding scale of funding for rural schools should be applied, realizing that equal funding per student in the province may not be fair funding. The issue is not just related to agriculture and farm families. It is about all communities in Bruce County. Larger towns should not assume that this disproportional funding will not someday be applied to them. Apathy and appeasement should not overpower proactive dialogue towards a constructive conclusion. As Winston Churchill once wisely said, an appeaser is one who feeds the crocodile hoping that will eat him last. In the final analysis, we are talking about our children's education and our community's futures. We all know that politics and economics are at play in funding decisions, but we suggest that an alliance of stakeholder groups, including, for example, OFA, municipal representation, Blue Water Board of Education trustees, etc., come together and work on a realistic and workable solution. All we ask is for a fair, equivalent education for our children, no less than what we would expect for our urban cousins' children. We need to promote these solutions before it is too late. Thank you. I certainly would entertain any questions or comments. We do have Pat Jellison is here. He's actually our OFA representative to the Ontario Board and certainly has been very active on that file. So if you have any questions, comments, we would certainly entertain those.
Thank you, Les. Any questions or comments from council? David?
Just a comment, Les, this is an excellent report. You've hit the nail right on the head. I think there does need to be some kind of a new provincial strategy for rural education. We've talked about this before, obviously, but I would be pleased to support this effort. The 2 points that you brought forward are right on as well. It's going to take some work to convince the province that they need to change the formula somehow, but we certainly need to start talking to them about it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And you're right, it's going to take a while and it's going to take a lot of work, but we need to start sometime and we need to start sooner rather than later.
Other comments or questions? Obviously, Bruce County was very involved with the Paisley and Chesley accommodation review with the regards to the Watson's report. So obviously we have your backs, and I honestly think that the grassroots organizations like OFA and Bruce County Federation of Ag, really, I think that bends the ears of the leaders at Queen's Park maybe a little bit more than we can sometimes. So just keep up the pressure on them, and obviously we'll be there to support your endeavors. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, thanks again for all your help.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, continuing on with the education theme, we have from Fanshawe College, John Momberket and Heather Mackenzie Card from here in Kinloss.
Warden, members of council, on behalf of Fanshawe College, we thank you today for hearing our presentation. I just want to make a note, though, although I come from Fanshawe College, my family immigrated here from Germany in the 1850s, a bunch of Smiths and Weilers, and settled in Mild Maine, Formosa, so familiar with the area. Heather, of course, you're from Amberley, so...
So I live here in Kinloss and grew up there as well.
Yeah, there we are.
Works quite well.
So what we do today is just give you an overview of some of the programs and services that we offer through Fanshawe College, and certainly some local opportunities that we can discuss. What I'll do is just give a brief overview of what we do, and then Heather is going to go into a site-by-site description of some of the programs that we have. So I just want you to know that Fanshawe College actually has been in Huron-Bruce. We call ourselves the Huron-Bruce Regional Sites. We actually are an official division of Fanshawe College. The reason for sites is sites are places that don't own the buildings. Campuses are where you do own the buildings from the college perspective. But Fanshawe College has direct site locations in Goderich, Clinton, Kincardine, and we're also in Tiverton, and Heather will describe that to you. And we're also in local communities such as Saugeen First Nations and Cape Croker, Nawasha, the Chippewa. So what we do, and our model in Huron-Bruce, is to offer college education that students and employers want, but one that's close to home in the community. And I will tell you that a majority of our students are students who would not otherwise go to college. For whatever reason, they would not be leaving Huron-Bruce, and they want to have a college education within the community. The other part for us is that our instructors are from the community and therefore have firsthand knowledge of local needs and opportunities. So when we know that when we have college education in the local community, the students themselves, and this is feedback we get from the students, they've got the opportunity to attend college locally, but that helps them to meet family and work obligations. So some of our students actually take classes during the day, but others take classes during the evening as well. And what most importantly, I think, is that we know that employers are always looking to find qualified local graduates to meet their particular labor market demands. And one of the things that we do is we sit down with employers and try to develop the programming that they may wish. And we can answer questions about that as we go forward. So again, we have the following sites in Bruce County, Kincardine at the Lake Huron Learning Center, Tiverton at the Bruce Technology and Skills Training Center, and then in Huron County, which is our hub is at Clinton at the Reach Center, and Goderich downtown on the square. So I'm just going to hand it over to Heather, and she's going to go over some of our programs.
All right, so I'll first talk a little bit about, so we offer programming at the Lake Huron Learning Center. So again, we lease space from that collaborative, and so we coordinate programming there. So we have a daytime personal support worker program. So again, the programs that we look at are programs that employers are looking for. So at the end of the day, we all know that there's a need for PSWs in our community, and I would say 95% of those students are employed even prior to being completed that program. I actually, interesting enough, I had an email email yesterday from someone from Thunder Bay looking for PSWs because they knew that we offered the program. So I don't know that I had any students that were willing to move to Thunder Bay, but there is a need in the province. Project management specialist has been very popular as well. We do a daytime offering and an evening offering in Kincardine. So again, there's a lot of students that are looking at opportunities that are to the north at Bruce Power. And if you go on the job postings, you see a lot of those skill sets or things that they're looking for. We're going to be starting a computerized office essentials program. So that's a certificate program for students. It's an office admin type program. We do some part-time programming as well. So Excel, AutoCAD, drafting, payroll. Really, we look at the needs and the requests that we're getting and then offer that programming for students. I'll talk a little bit about a partnership that we have in Tiverton. So the Bruce Technology Skills Training Center is located on Farrell Drive, so it's across from where the information or visitor center is for Bruce Power. So this program started a number of years ago where they had kind of worked together with Bruce Power to develop some programming directly with some provincial funding. But from that, we decided to offer some full-time post-secondary programming. So this will be our third year up at the site. So we offer a welding techniques certificate and a mechanical engineering technician. So it's really industrial millwright is what it's kind of the skill sets the students would be learning. In the millwright program, they're getting level 1 and level 2 apprenticeship training. So we teach that within that program at the completion of that diploma. The welding techniques program, we just got certified as the Canadian Welding Bureau site. So basically, at the end of the day, when employers are looking for welders, they're looking for those CWB and TSSA certifications. So those are the two things that are important, certainly as a welder when you're walking out the door in training. We're looking at starting the electrical techniques certificate for January 2016. So again, or 2018, I'm behind my times here, 2018. So again, the electrical techniques program is a kind of an entry-level program where they teach level 1 industrial electrical in that program, and students start to gain some skill sets for that piece. The way the programs are working in Tiverton is that they're an evening offering. So students are there 4 nights a week. A lot of students are working during the day. That's often enough why the students find it attractive. We're getting students directly from high school, and we're also getting students that are looking at a second career. So it's a good fit for many. Again, one of the things that we're offering for Bruce Power is we do their level school training at the site. So we do all 3 levels for industrial millwright and industrial electrician. So again, those programs are facilitated for the employees for Bruce Power. But I always like to remind people but this is a small number. They're not huge numbers that they're bringing in the apprenticeship programs for Bruce Power. They're small numbers. So one of the things that we focus on our trades programs in Tiverton in the evening offering is we're working with the union halls. The construction union halls are where the majority of your trades are going to come from for the new refurb. So for instance, our students that are just graduating or just graduated at the end of April in our welding program, we had 9 students. 4 of those students went to the pipe fitters hall. The trainer actually came up to our site the last month of the program and was, observing the students and taking a look at how the students were doing. And we had 4 students that were offered employment. Along with that, the other students are all working in local employers throughout the county. So I think that's some pretty amazing results for those students, and they get what they need at the end of the day. So the Reach Center in Clinton is kind of our hub. That's where a lot of our programming has started. So there we offer a number of more health related programming. So personal support worker, we offer both 2 groups of personal support. So we have a start in September and a start in January, an early childhood education diploma program. We do a healthcare office, a food service worker certificate, and specialized personal support worker courses, along with doing some evening offerings there as well. So we do things like Excel, Photoshop. We actually have a well-equipped lab at that site as well that recently had new computers. So it's been great. And in Goderich, Again, with our Goderich site, it was kind of a collective from the community. The community came together and really wanted to have post-secondary on at the tornado in Goderich. So they came to us and we worked together to develop the site that we have in Goderich. So we have a classroom there along with some laptops for our students. So our initial flagship program was the Business Entrepreneurship and Management Diploma Program. The reason why we chose that program was in Huron County, statistically saying, a number of the businesses are medium to small size small businesses. So we felt it would fit for the community to support that. Some of the other programming that we're offering are some human resource management certificate, project management specialists. Again, we do some specialized courses, so some over 50 gang type courses. We have a lot of people who come to live in Goderich for the fall, summer, spring, and they leave in the winter. So those types of courses, we've been offering some fun wine tasting. We started that last week, and we have a group of students that are participating in that. We also started the M2 motorcycle training, and we're using the old racetrack for Volvo to facilitate that program. So that's a nice way. You don't have to drive too far for students. So I'll talk a little bit about our relationship with Saugeen First Nations. So that started back in February 2015. We were invited to come up to speak in regards to project management specialists. They had a number of larger projects that they were facilitating on the reserve, and nobody had those project management skills. So we initiated a project management specialist course back in September of 2015, and we just had our graduation last week at Saugeen First Nations with our 7 graduates. So again, it was great to see from beginning to end, and it was a big accomplishment for the students, and I think that's something that we'll continue to build on for those communities. A lot of that was approached by Saugeen First Nations. Again, they have, in their community, they support seniors in their homes, and so again, they also are needing skill sets of personal support worker program. So we started in partnership with Saugeen First Nations and Cape Croker, a personal support worker program. So we have 8 students altogether, 4 students who are from Saugeen First Nations and 4 students who are from Cape Croker. We're taking turns at what facility we're using. So right now the students are up at Cape Croker, and so they're in a full-time programming, 4 days a week, taking their personal support worker program. Students have been offered employment by an employer locally. So the intent is that they would graduate, they would be certified as PSW, and then they're attached to the labor market really quickly. So again, the funding came from the Canada Ontario Jobs Grant and the both Cape Croker and Saugeen First Nations Council. I'm going to let you carry on.
So I think the key point that we want to leave you with is that we have the capacity to go into communities. Those courses that you saw listed in the different towns, such as personal support worker and human resources certificate, it doesn't mean that we only offer them in Clinton. We are looking at offering them where their local demand is there. So what we're hoping to do is to work with the economic development departments of both Huron and Bruce counties to be able to help us identify those communities and help us to connect with employers so that we are able to do the part that we can do, which is to provide that education for students. One of the pieces I just want to note too is, and this is important for students, yes, the college does charge tuition. Yes, we do these sort of things. But on the other hand, by doing it locally for many families that have come forward to us, they've said basically, I'd like to do a PSW, but I just can't afford to go to London to do it. We're doing it here in the community. And this is a testimonial from one of our students. Heather, I think you can talk a little bit about this one.
Sure.
And then I think we're finished.
So Tara was one of our students in Clinton, one of our first graduates in our ECE program. So again, she was a student who was hard of hearing as well, so she needed to have some accommodations in the classroom. It's amazing to watch students when they come in the door and then watch them leave and see kind of their self-esteem and their self-worth, and all of those things start to grow. So again, she was supporting her family. Her husband had recently been unemployed, and she needed to be able to find some employment. So what actually on her student placement. She was offered employment, so she was doing some after school as an ECE, and so it was a really great opportunity for this student. And this is one of many. I had an email a couple of weeks ago from a student who's taking our mechanical program in Tiverton and said, you know what, Heather, this changed my life. I would never have been able to go somewhere else to take this program because I work, I have a baby coming, and there was too many things going on in their lives. So for that particular student, he said it really has changed his life to be able to move forward with his own, upgrading his own skill sets and then attaching himself better to the labor market. So I think all of those things are really important. The only other thing I'd like to add is just in another community that we are doing some work in is in Stratford. So Stratford actually has a Conestoga College campus there, but they're not offering post-secondary programming. So we're actually offering a PSW program at the high school at St. Mike's. So I know when you talk about community schools, my kids went to Ripley, my daughter is at King Cardin High School, so I understand kind of how some of that impacts us. I went to Ripley School, I went to King Cardin High School. It's like I can't move away, but I understand that. But some of these things can certainly work together. I know when I was graduating, there was programs that were available locally, and I think it really helps students at the end. So thank you.
And I graduated from Goderich District Collegiate, so I'm out from that standpoint. Unfortunately, my family immigrated in part to Goderich, so there you go. Any questions, folks?
Good, well, thank you very much for your presentation. Questions or comments from Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. John, I think you touched on this, but just recently we had a presentation from the Four County Labor Board, and they'd done a pretty broad consultation with business owners in the four counties. One of the things that they told us was that employers were having difficulty recruiting people with certain sets of skills in that area, and I wondered, I think you touched on earlier how you try and respond to the market, but I wonder how those connections are made and how fast you can respond to those needs that.
Well, thank you. That's an important point, because the issue for us, and again, I will tell you that we've got a rather thin staff from an administrative point of view. We're the staff, there we go. At least 25 part-time instructors and sessional instructors, as they call them, in Fanshawe up here. One of the things that we've had some difficulty with is making that connection directly with the employers through the economic development boards. And it's just time, that's all, and having those conversations and getting better known. I think because of the fact that we've been up here for a while, it's time that we start establishing, one, greater public awareness that we're here, and I think, two, some form of protocol that would help us to make those connections that Gemma identified. But we do work with the Four County Labor Board, and we actually are members, and we do all that too. But so, for example, recently, we met with the Goderich Chamber of Commerce. We started to establish some networking with it, and we also started to identify some other areas that are in need. So, for example, we have two of our instructors are local entrepreneurs, well-known restaurateurs in the community. And they developed for us a 4-hour customer service workshop that we eventually would like to develop into a retail certificate that people could take, short-term certificate, learn the basics of retail, how to be in front of a store, how to do the work that you need to do to be able to make a small business successful as an employee or an employer. And we piloted it. We don't do dual credits in Bruce County, but we are connected with dual credits for the Huron-Perth Board and Avon Maitland, and we piloted it in the secondary schools, and it was very successful. So our hope is that we can move in that direction to be able to help people identify what some of their needs are.
Other comments, questions? I know my son Kyler is taking the business course in Goderich, and he's quite enjoying it, and I agree with all the testimonials and all that has been said. It's been, and it's, how do we keep our kids here in Bruce and Huron counties, and having these off-site campuses are very helpful. And I know OFA's here, and I don't know if there's a tie-in between Fanshawe OFA, or if there could be, I don't know, but obviously Mayor Paul is going to be renting a couple classrooms at the Paisley School, so maybe there's some way of getting into these hubs. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Well, we recently were up in Lion's Head talking to Northern Bruce Peninsula, and they were raising the issue with us, the exact thing. They have some classroom space in Tobermory. They wanted to develop locally some programming in Tobermory, and then they were going to come back to us once they had their plan done. But I mean, that's an obvious win if we can, we're in the position to rent or lease a classroom space, or at least be able to use the classroom space to provide a specific program or course that the local community is needing.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Thank you very much, and
Thank you.
keep up the good work. Okay, any reports from staff this morning? Hearing none. Any inquiries or announcements this morning? I have one. Today is Charles' last council meeting, and I know we're warned not to say anything, and he's not giving a speech, but I just want to recognize Charlie and all the things he's done for the county and for the residents at both Gateway and Bruce Lee Haven. We want to thank you for all the hard work and dedication you've given not only the county but the residents, Charlie, and I think we owe Charlie a round of applause.
Thank you.
Now you can give your speech.
I really just want to say a huge thank you to the County of Bruce. You've provided me with an avenue that is very, very close to my heart, and that being serving the most vulnerable in our communities. And I have so enjoyed the last 12 years, and you have given me full reins in that area, and I am personally indebted to the County of Bruce. I have enjoyed my working career with you every day except for one, and that's another story. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Charlie. Minutes.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Buckle, seconded by Councillor Ingalls, that the minutes of the following committees be approved. May 4th, 2017, Executive Committee, Corporate Services Committee, Human Resources Committee, Homes Committee, Museum Committee, Social Services and Housing Committee, Paramedic Services Committee, May 18th, 2017, Planning and Development Committee, Highways Committee, and Human Resources Committee.
Are there any errors, omissions, or discussions from any of those minutes circulated? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. Any notice of motions this morning? Seeing none. Other business? No other business this morning. Bylaws. Donna?
I have a motion moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Eagleson, that the following bylaws be adopted. 2017-037 is a bylaw to establish fees and charges for the corporation of the County of Bruce. 2017-038 is a bylaw to adopt a code of conduct for members of Bruce County Council. 2017-039 is a bylaw to adopt amendment number 221 to the County of Bruce official plan. 2017-040 is a bylaw to adopt amendment number 217 to the County of Bruce official plan. 2017-041 is a bylaw to regulate and control the movement of all-terrain vehicles and multi-purpose off-highway utility and recreational vehicles on a portion of Bruce County Roads 8, 9, and 13. 2017-042 is a bylaw to adopt estimates, tax ratios, and tax rates for the year 2017. 2017-043 is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the County of Bruce at its meeting held the first day of June 2017.
Are there any further discussions on any of those bylaws? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Eagleson and seconded by Councillor Jackson that we do now adjourn to meet Thursday, July 6, 2017, in the Township of Huron-Kinloss for the summer session.
All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried.